Greetings, Happy New Year. My name is Hendy Matahelemual, and I'm grateful to be here for our Bible study. Our theme for this month is Belonging to God's Reign. And part one of the series entitled Children of God Through Adoption. Our passage for our reflection is taken from Galatians 3:23 all the way to Galatians 4:7. This is where Paul talks about son and heirs through Christ in the context of Galatian church. The Galatian church has been struggling to understand the implication of becoming followers of Jesus. Some members of the community wants to keep their Jewish law and tradition, but some others don't. Many of them do not have Jewish background. They were Gentiles. Definitely there were tensions between these two groups of people. Galatians 4:6, I'm going to read this first. And because you are children, God has sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a child. And if a child, then also an heir through God. Both Jews and Gentiles struggled with their identity. And in this case, I will argue that their identity is standing in the way, holding them back from becoming a true follower of Jesus. Jews were slaves to the Jewish law, and the Gentiles were slaves to whatever attached to them. It can be their Greco-Roman culture and law, or maybe their own traditions. When Paul said there is no longer Jew or Greek, there is no longer slave or free, there is no longer male or female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. A new identity was available to them, and that is the identity as a follower of Jesus. The identity that transcends beyond their ethnicity, culture, law, and tradition. When I first came to the United States, I lived in Queens, New York City, for a couple of years. One thing that I'm amazed about the city, especially in Queens, is how much diverse the community around me. Every time I walk through my neighborhood, or I'm in a bus or in a subway, I hear so many different languages being spoken. And I see people from every color, young and old. Queens probably is the most diverse place on earth. But having those diversity does not necessarily make the community unite. Segregation, racism, injustice, violence is still there. And people do not have a deep relationship towards one another, especially from different culture. People still live in their own bubble. And in that kind of society, polarization can easily growing and creating wall of division. And this is very dangerous because it's like setting a time bomb that can blow up anytime in the future. That is why I believe that the message that Paul wrote to the church in Galatia is still very applicable in today's context. As a follower of Jesus, we have the good news. We have the cure that can reconcile people, cure that can break all walls that made by human arrogance. And the cure is Jesus. Yes, sometimes God allows wounds to be open again that needs to be healed, and sometimes healing takes time. But there's only one cure that can cure it all, and it's through the Spirit of His Son. If we said that we are followers of Jesus, that means there should be no other identity that can create a division in the church. When we have the same Father, that means we are one family in Christ. We are all children of God through adoption. In a family, conflicts, difference of opinion is something that we need to manage. For example, I have a brother. We argue all the times. We have different opinions, but every time we argue, we still brothers. We don't cut ties. Maybe sometimes we need to let go things or ideas or anything that we hold so dearly and let God works on it. Sometimes we need to wrestle it together as a community, especially if we are followers of Christ. What kind of identity that holds you back from God's family? What identity that the society put on you that holds you back from becoming one in Christ? I also ask this question to myself. I always try my best to let go things that keep me away from becoming one in Christ. Remember, we are no longer a slave, but a child of God. I hope you are blessed. Thank you for listening.